Christelle Oosthuizen is coming up next, is a consulting actuary at Insight Life Solutions. She has 5 years of experience working both in industry and in consulting. She enjoys hiking and exploring Cape Town, having moved back down to Cape Town recently. She says, baking sweet stuff to try and cure her sweet tooth. That is the best way to stop your sweet tooth, baking more sweet things. And having a conversation with ChatGPT. Her topic is Epigenetics, the hidden key to understanding health and insurance risks. Please put your hands together for Christelle Oosthuizen. Louder! I got you.
Okay, so just before my presentation in Cape Town on Tuesday, Christoph pressured me a bit. So if you guys can laugh at my jokes throughout the presentation so that he thinks it's going well, it'll be great. But if you guys don't find it funny, Barry at least said he'll do damage control, so that's fine. Okay. Is epigenetics the hidden key to understanding health and insurance risk? The year is 1944. It's the end of the Second World War. The Nazis cut off food supplies to the western part of the Netherlands in retaliation for the exiled Dutch government supporting the Allies. Some 20,000 people died, and about 4.5 million people were affected by the direct and indirect consequences of the famine. In addition to an exceptionally harsh winter, bad crops, and 4 years of brutal war, the population was forced to live on rations of about 400 to 800 calories a day. This is referred to as the Dutch hunger winter and has proved unique in unexpected ways. Because it started and ended so abruptly, it served as an unplanned experiment in human health. Pregnant women, it turns out, were uniquely affected, and the children they gave birth to were affected by the famine throughout their lives. When they became adults, they experienced higher levels of LDL cholesterol and higher rates of conditions such as schizophrenia, obesity, and diabetes. This made me wonder, what if there is some sort of test that these people could take that could tell them what impact their environments and behaviors have had on their lives so far? A test that could tell them what steps they can take to counteract the negative impact of the famine and live a healthier life. Would they actually take the steps required? During today's presentation, I'm going to give you a brief overview of what epigenetics is, how it can be implemented in life insurance, and what some of the ethical, legal, and social implications, as well as some of the concerns or constraints are when implementing it in life insurance. So how can we define epigenetics? Epigenetics refers to changes in gene expression, but what do we mean by this? Let's look at some basic terms followed by an example. Genetics is the study of heredity, and collectively our genes or genome are made up of our DNA. And in turn, our DNA is made up of tiny molecules, A, G, C, and T. And it is the arrangement of these tiny molecules which can be seen as or interpreted as our genes. But so how does epigenetics contribute? Let's assume for a moment that the letters in these 4 simple words represent the sequence of our genome. So, when arranged in a certain way, and when we apply proper grammar and context, we can recognize them as words. And they take a certain meaning. However, when we apply different grammar and context, they take a very different meaning. And similarly, our epigenetics can be seen as the grammar of our genome. We can see this by what epigenetics consists of. So it consists of epi, which is a Greek word meaning on top of or above, and genetics to literally mean anything on top of or above our genome. The biological purpose of epigenetics is to control gene expression. In other words, to turn certain genes on or off. It is very important when we consider that all the cells in our body contain the exact same genetic information. However, during development, we all start off as one single cell. And as the cell starts to grow and divide, epigenetics kicks in to split the cells in a very coordinated manner. And this is then used to give new cells different meaning and to help the cells to develop so that we all have neurons in the brain, cardiac cells in the heart, muscle cells, and so on. It is also very important to mention here that where our genetics are static, in other words, it does not change throughout our lives, our epigenetics can change, and our epigenetic changes are reversible. We know from years of scientific research that the diet we eat, whether it's a healthy one or one that's high in sugars or unhealthy fats, whether we exercise enough, are we able to avoid stress, do we get enough sleep, do we smoke or drink to excess, how healthy were our mothers when they were pregnant with us. So, like what did they eat, for example? All of these environmental and behavioral factors contribute or affect our epigenetics. So, when you think about it philosophically for a moment, our epigenetics really defines a process by which our personal history or lifestyle choices can be written directly onto our DNA, which is the very fabric of the material for the blueprint that makes us who we are. DNA methylation is one of the most common forms of epigenetics, which includes the attachment of tiny chemical groups called methyl groups, each containing one carbon atom and 3 hydrogen atoms, to your DNA, which prevents the gene from being expressed. DNA methylation can be used to determine your susceptibility to certain diseases, or determine your biological age, or to determine whether you're a smoker or not. But this will also be discussed later in the presentation. So let's make use of Popeye, a wisecracking cartoon sailor who has superhuman strength after always eating a can of spinach, as an example of someone who decides to take out life insurance. After he married Olive Oil, he decided to take out life insurance in order to protect her when something were to happen to him. At the application stage, the life insurance company will send Popeye an epigenetic testing kit, which will include him taking a saliva sample, and this will then be sent back to the insurer or to a lab for testing. Because it makes use of a saliva sample instead of an invasive blood or urine test, this improves his customer experience. And also, because a lot of the information that can be obtained from the underwriting questionnaire can now be obtained from the epigenetic tests, this can also shorten the underwriting questionnaire significantly. This will then be used to determine Popeye's biological age, which can be different from his chronological age. And your biological age is used to determine how old the cells in your body are. But before a life insurer can make use of epigenetic tests, they need to evaluate the epigenetic tests. And there is a widely accepted evaluation criteria that is used to evaluate clinical tests that can also be used in this regard. And it can be split into 3 different headings or 3 different groupings. The first of which is analytical validity. And the important questions to ask here are how accurately can an epigenetic test determine your biological age? So if I were to take the same test twice on the same day, how different will my biological ages be based on these tests? Or if 2 labs or 2 life insurers were to test the same sample, how different will the ages be that they determine based on it? The next one is clinical validity, and the question to ask here is, how correlated is your biological age, which might be different from your chronological age, to your health and disease risk? Or stated differently, is your biological age a more reliable measure of your health and disease risk compared to your chronological age? And the last one is clinical utility. And with clinical utility, it refers to whether the epigenetic tests can provide information that is useful to the individual or to the consumer. And as can be seen throughout the presentation, the life insurer can provide the individual with an epigenetic report or a longevity report that can provide them with a lot of information regarding their health and disease risk. But there is, however, still a lot of research that needs to be done, or a lot of work that needs to be done to ensure that the epigenetic tests is actually an accurate or a reliable measure of your biological age and your health and disease risk. So Popeye's biological age might differ from his chronological age. So because he is a smoker, even though we don't necessarily know what he smokes, might be higher. Because he smokes, his biological age might be higher than his chronological age, which might lead to age acceleration. But because he has a relatively healthy diet, because he loves his spinach so much, this might mean that his biological age might be lower than his chronological age, and this will lead to age deceleration. The life insurer can then provide an epigenetic or a longevity report to Popeye, which can include some of the following information, but this is just examples of what can be included in the epigenetic report. So it can provide a comparison of his biological and his chronological age. It can include his aging rate, which is calculated as his biological age over his chronological age, where an aging rate smaller than 1 implies that the cells in his body is actually healthier than his chronological age. It can also include suggestions on what he can reduce or improve on to improve his biological age and his biological health. And this can also include examples of what he can do under each of the suggestions. For example, what kind of exercises he can do to improve his biological health. This test can assist the life insurer to reduce information asymmetry by providing the life insurer with epigenetic data instead of relying solely on policyholder disclosure. It can also help to reduce the risk of anti-selection, whereby an individual intentionally withholds information from the life insurer in order to gain financial advantage during the underwriting process. DNA methylation can be used to accurately measure long-term smoking, where when you're a smoker, the chemicals in the cigarettes affect the way your genes are methylated, and this will persist in your cells even after you stop smoking, and this can be seen as a form of smoking signature. So the graphs here show the differences between people that have never smoked, people that stopped smoking, and people that are smokers. So what this means for Popeye is that even if he stopped smoking, or if he attempts to hide the fact from the life insurer that he is a smoker, this will be picked up with the epigenetic test. So if the life insurer will then make use of this information during the underwriting process, and this will then lead to more accurate underwriting. If the insurer then accepts his risk, they will then charge a premium that is commensurate with his health risk. So because he is a smoker, his premium will be higher because his biological health can be seen as worse. But because he has a relatively healthy diet, this might lead to a reduction in his premiums going forward. So a couple of years have passed, and Popeye takes out another epigenetic test. During the last couple of years, he actually followed the epigenetic testing or the epigenetic report suggestions, and he stopped smoking, he exercised more, etc. And because of this, his biological age increased by less than his chronological age, which means that his biological health actually improved. Because of this, the life insurer reduces his premiums, and they also provide him with a partial rebate of some of the premiums that he paid over the last couple of years. This incentivizes Popeye to live healthier because he sees that there are premium reduction and some rebates or discounts. And this will then lead to the insurer to manage the policy more effectively. And as can be seen in this scenario, using epigenetics during life insurance not only benefits the insurer by being able to underwrite, price, and manage the policy more effectively, but it also benefits the individual, or it benefits Popeye by being incentivized to live a healthier lifestyle, which will lead to a reduction in premiums. So apart from the scenario I mentioned above, epigenetic tests can also be used to provide detailed information about an individual's genetic predispositions, such as their susceptibility to certain diseases or their different health outcomes. And this can then be used by insurers to offer proactive interventions or to encourage applicants to take steps to mitigate risk factors, such as incentivizing them to live healthier or to take preventative medical screenings. And this can then help both the insurer and the individual to manage risks more effectively, which can then be used to reduce health costs in the long run. An example of a life insurer in the US that has started making use of epigenetics is a life insurer called Usurance. So, like a price comparison site, individuals can make use of Usurance to purchase insurance from different providers. However, ahead of choosing products, the consumers are encouraged to provide a saliva sample, which will be used to determine their biological age or their biological health. And this will then be used to choose or to determine the products that will be made available to them. So if epigenetics can have so many benefits or opportunities in the life insurance industry, then why hasn't it been applied in South Africa yet? So let's look at some of the ethical, legal, and social implications first. So your epigenetic data might be used to discriminate against you during the underwriting process, which can mean that the life insurer can either deny coverage or increase your premiums. And your epigenetic data can also be seen as very private or very sensitive. And depending on what the life insurer wants to do with it, it might potentially violate the POPI Act. Currently in South Africa, there is no legislation which addresses genetic or epigenetic discrimination. However, if there were legislation that addressed genetic discrimination, should epigenetic information also be included in genetic discrimination, or is your epigenetics distinct enough from your genetics to be excluded from this legislation? So the question here becomes, is it seen as fair or unfair to discriminate based on your epigenetic information over which you have more control, and where your epigenetic data isn't just information that is obtained from your parents that remains static over your lifetime? So is it seen as ethical to discriminate based on epigenetic information or not? Also, some of the major constraints or concerns when making use of epigenetics is that it requires significant investment in research, infrastructure, and expertise. So life insurers will need to update their risk management processes or update their underwriting practices a lot. And with this epigenetic test, it can become quite expensive over time. So it will require the life insurer to send epigenetic testing kits to prospective policyholders at the application stage. And because your epigenetics can also change over your lifetime, ongoing tests will need to be conducted. So there are a lot of companies in the UK and the US that carry out epigenetic tests, and the retail price of these tests are about $300 US or 250 pounds, which translates to approximately 6,000 rand. So it can be quite expensive, but the expectation is, or hopefully, the prices of epigenetic tests will decrease a lot in the future as the demand for epigenetics increase. So in conclusion, there are a lot of benefits or opportunities when making use of epigenetics, but in order for life insurance to make use of it, they need to take into account the ethical, legal, and social implications, as well as some of the constraints or concerns when implementing it. If you guys are interested in epigenetics, there is a paper called a white paper on technology and innovation by the Society of Actuaries that you guys can go and read. Or you can also watch a presentation done by Dr. Daniel E. Zimmerman called Be Kind to Your Genes, an insurance perspective on the fast-growing field of epigenetics. So now that you know what you can do to improve or impact your health, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to help insurers to pave a healthier or more equitable future? But if you want to live healthier going forward, just start tomorrow, please. So then you can enjoy tonight and eat, drink, and be merry. And then, yeah, you can start eating healthier and drinking less from tomorrow going forward. Thank you.